Hello, my name's Paul Jennings and welcome to the Piping Show. I'm not a piper by any means. I mean, I've had a go a couple of times and to be honest, you wouldn't ever want to hear how that sounded. No, I am the guy who brings you the Piping Show, and today in this very special edition, I'm going to bring you an interview that I did with Finlay MacDonald, sharing his story of his life in piping, how he got into it, his journey so far, and I think it's a really interesting and inspiring conversation. Please make sure you hit the like button and also subscribe. It really helps the National Piping Centre and Piping Live, our YouTube channel, to reach as many people as possible. All of our content's free, so if you enjoy the content on this YouTube channel, that really helps us out and does us a favor, and we appreciate that. Thank you. So we'll be bringing you that in a little bit, but of course, first of all, let's go to Helen Urquhart with this week's news.
The National Youth Pipe Band of Scotland are coming to Dumfries for their outreach workshop, Four Corners Dumfries, on the 16th and 17th of October. The tutors have just been announced as Stephen Blake, the National Youth Pipe Band of Scotland's director, with guest instructors Craig Muirhead, Callum Moffat and Craig Baxter. Registrations are now open over at www.nypbs.co.uk. Head over there to find out more about all the levels that you can take part in. The next CLASP competition is a live online event and takes place on Saturday the 16th of November. Registrations will close on the 16th of October, so head over to the website to find out more and register now to take part in this next event. It's open to amateur pipers from across the world, but you need to be registered as a CLASP member to take part. We can now announce that the players for the Glenfiddich Piping Championships this year on Saturday the 29th of October at Blair Castle will be Jack Lee, the 2021 champion, Callum Beaumont, Glenn Brown, Jamie Forrester, Alex Gandy, Nick Hudson, Angus McCall, Fred Morrison, Willie McCallum and Connor Sinclair. Tickets are available online and in person for this event, so head over to the National Piping Centre website, www.thepipingcentre.co.uk/Glenfiddich to get your tickets now.
Now we're going to go to this week's history section with none other than Dr. Andrew Bova.
Hello there. Last week we spoke about Angus Mackay and his famous appointment to be the first piper to the Sovereign. It's easy when we speak about our great players of yesteryear to focus on their achievements and what they gave to history. However, it's also important to remember that they were people who lived lives just like the rest of us. Thanks to the generosity of Angus Mackay's descendants, I'm able to show you today a painting of his wife and eldest son, John. Mary Mackay, pictured here, was born in Crawford, Lanarkshire in 1819. It's unknown how she and Angus met, but they were married at the Canongate Kirk in Edinburgh on the 26th of May, 1841. From 1842 to 1853, Angus and Mary would go on to have 4 children, Janet, Margaret, John, pictured here, and Angus. All 4 would go on to lead successful lives, and John in 1883 emigrated to China and then to Australia, where he would marry and live out the rest of his days. This painting's in incredible condition, given that it was painted in 1854. And if we look at the back, we can see not only that it describes Mary Mackay, born Mary Russell, with her son John Mackay, circa 1854, but also that it was painted at the Royal Panopticon of Science and Art in Leicester, London. I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole looking into the Royal Panopticon and found that it was opened in 1854 and closed in 1856, which would lead me to believe that the date of somewhere around 1854 would be correct. In 1856, the Royal Panopticon would close its doors and become the Alhambra Theatre of Variety, which would continue on through World War I until 1936, when it was demolished to make way for what is now the Odeon Cinema in Leicester Square. I mentioned last week that Angus Mackay sadly had to give up his royal appointment due to a mental illness. He was first admitted into a mental hospital in February of 1854. With my research, I found that the Royal Panopticon opened its doors in March of 1854, meaning that this painting would have been done during the time when Angus Mackay was sadly in and out of mental hospitals. Again, I would like to thank the descendants of Angus Mackay for generously sending this painting to us. It's truly a unique and wonderful view into the history of one of our famous players, and also the history of those who played pipes for the sovereign.
Now let's find out where Chanter MacDuck has been this week. Now it's time for my very special interview with Mr. Finlay MacDonald, who I consider a very close friend and someone I've worked with over many years, going back 20 years now. We've toured America together, we've done many musical projects together, and now we work together at the Piping Centre. So I thought it would be a great idea to sit down with him, who hosts the Piping Show, and bring you this conversation about his story and his journey so far in piping. I hope you enjoy it. Finlay MacDonald, it's nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Paul.
Yeah, it's nice to have you in the hot seat on the Piping Show. You've presented a couple now and you're very good at it, I must say.
Thank you.
Very
That's
natural.
very kind of you, sir.
And I thought it would be nice for me to chat to you, because you and I have known each other for a fairly long time now. We've toured together, we've worked a lot together in various things, and we've had a good time doing it.
We sure have.
But one thing I guess I want to start with, or where I want to start with yourself, you've had a long career now, not so long, but you've done a lot in your life as a piper, a musician, and now, you know, in this place. Was there a point when you would have started learning the pipes as a youngster?
Yep.
Was there a particular point where you realized this actually is going to be a path for me? This is going to be what I do with my life?
It was really. When I started in the local pipe band, my dad taught me. My dad was the pipe major of the Neilson District Pipe Band, and it was very much a family affair. You know, my sister played, my cousins were in the band. You know, it was like literally what we did as a family.
Right.
It was the pipe band thing was like pretty much the focus of our lives for most of our youth. You know.
Sorry, did you say your sister was in
My
it as
sister,
well?
yeah, my sister plays, and cousins, uncles.
Wow.
You know, but the interesting thing, and again, it's kind of, I think it's rooted me in that kind of the wider thing that happens with things like pipe bands and community that's built around it. It was literally our lives. So I would be at pipe band practice twice a week, Tuesday and Thursday nights. Saturday morning, my dad ran a class at Paisley Grammar School. I would be taken along, you know, and it wasn't just for my lesson. I was there the whole day.
Right.
Just hanging out, being exposed
and when
to
did
it.
you start the chanter?
I was like 8 or 9,
Okay.
I think. It's hard
Right.
to say exactly because it just happened. I remember my dad starting me off, maybe about 8 or 9, and I kind of rebelled, as you do.
Yeah.
I didn't fancy it, and you know, I used to lock myself in the toilet so I didn't have to go to the piping classes and stuff like that. But then I quickly realised that I actually remember the day I decided I wanted to get back into it.
Okay.
And the pipe band were playing I think it was a CND march in Glasgow.
Yeah.
And the band did loads of stuff like that. The Neilson band didn't just do the competitions. They were really up for doing like gala days and demonstration marches and all that. They would do everything, you know. And I remember it was a lovely summer's day in George Square, and the band were tuning up to getting ready to lead the parade. And I remember I get left holding the jackets. You know, and I remember standing there holding the jackets.
Oh, because you had
So
given up?
I'd given up.
Okay.
So I was standing at the side holding people's jackets and water bottles or whatever. and then listen to the sound and just thinking, actually, I want to be doing that.
Yeah.
I don't want to be standing here holding the jackets. You know, so that was when, I guess that was the time I kind of decided I wanted to play.
Right.
And then obviously I got into it, and I was taught, by my dad, but also by other guys in the pipe band, my uncles that played, so it was very much a kind of...
And what age were you when you were holding the jackets?
10,
Right.
probably, 10, 11, I think.
So how long did you walk away?
Probably a year or so, year and a half.
And then you were like, actually, this is...
Actually, I want to do this, yeah.
And then, so at what point, at what point did you realize this is actually, or did it just kind of happen? You ended up playing in bands and getting into the folky thing and then going on tour. Did it just sort of like flow?
It did flow, but I think there was some serendipitous things that happened.
Synchronicity moments.
There was, yeah. So when I was maybe like 14, 15, I knew I was getting much more into it. I was playing small pipes by that point because my dad was big into that. I was going to sessions at Babbity Bowsters and playing in that side of thing as well. So I was doing the pipe band stuff, I was doing the kind of folky thing, starting to kind of write my own stuff and play with people on guitar and fiddles and getting into more of that kind of thing. And then I guess when I was a wee bit older than that, kind of 6th year at school, I wasn't hugely academic. I was okay, middle of the road. But by the time I got to like 5th year, I actually was quite enjoying school again, because it had become a bit more of a kind of like social thing, and I had good friends, and so I wanted to stay on. And I knew that the following year, the RSAMD were starting the BA Scottish Music course.
That dates us when you say RSAMD.
Yeah, exactly. So that was the kind of plan. I knew by that point music was what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. I didn't quite know how to do it at that point because there wasn't really any courses. It could have been just playing in bands and stuff like that, which I would have been delighted with. So I did higher music in 6th year at school because I had to take another subject, and my options were management information studies or music. So it was a no-brainer for me. And,
management information studies.
I went to the head of music at the school I went to, and he wasn't supportive of traditional music at all.
Okay.
He wasn't supportive of any music really. When he was the head of music, he was a pretty awful.
I had a very similar experience in my high school. Completely unsupportive. Actually told me, because I knew I wanted to be a musician at that point. And she actually said to me when I was 14 or 15, she said, I understand that you want to be a professional musician. Well, I think you're going to find it very hard. And that was the chat,
Yeah, well, I had almost the same conversation. So I went to this guy, head of music, and I said, look, I would like to do my higher music. I've not done standard grade, and that was the thing because he didn't encourage people to play music, and that was his job essentially. And so I said, well, I want to do higher music. And he said, no, you've got a 99% chance of failing because you've not done standard grade and you don't know kind of conventional music theory and all that. And at the same time, I was out doing gigs. I was out playing gigs, writing music, doing all that. And I was really lucky that one of the music teachers kind of overheard this conversation. Mrs. Cornwell, I'll always remember as one of my kind of main influences and the person who made me believe I could do it more than anyone. And she said, well, I'll take it on.
That's great.
I'll take you on and do higher music. And there was only 2 of us in the class of a school of like 1,500 people. And that says it all, that was 2 people doing higher music.
Yeah, it does.
And she took the class, and she was amazing because she knew, she'd studied with a guy called George McElwham, who's a great piper and flautist. Okay. He did the kind of piping and the classical music thing, so she understood piping, and she knew things like, I knew about music, but I just didn't know the terminology. Yeah. I knew what things meant and the feel of them and how to play them, but I just didn't know what the terms were or how to write it down. And I've always used her as my inspiration when I'm teaching, because she believed in me, and she said, well, because you haven't gone the conventional way, doesn't mean you can't do this. Mm-hmm. And I've always used that in my teaching, like, there's so many ways to learn, and it's never just, this straight line.
No,
I think,
of course not. Of
you know,
course
and
not.
she was amazing because she believed that I could do it, and I ended up getting an A in my higher music. And I
Excellent.
loved going back to say to the teacher, the head of music,
Excellent.
there you go.
I am the 1%.
Yeah, so that was it. And then by that point, I'd left school. I took a year out, travelled, played music, worked in a bank, worked in a clothes shop, did all
Did
that
you not
stuff.
work in a bar in Malaga?
I did,
Yeah.
Where was it? Not Malaga, it was in Marbella.
Right.
Yeah, I worked
How
there
old
for a
were you
couple of
there?
months. 18,
Right.
something like that, yeah.
So lots of quiet nights.
Quiet nights,
in
just
Marbella.
working behind the bar in
Yeah,
Marbella
yeah.
in the summer season, yeah. Of
course.
And I took my pipes. I ended up playing pipes more than pulling pints.
Great.
It was, but it was great. I did that, and then the RSAMD course came up the following year, so I was glad I had that year in between.
Yeah, of course.
Just to do different things, and then that was it really. From there, it was kind of, the path was kind of, I was doing it, I was on the path, yeah.
And well, when you and I met was when I was playing with the Old Blind Dogs. I actually don't know how that came, I can't remember how that came about, because when I was in the band, this is 20 years ago, Rory Campbell was the piper.
I think you'll find it's more than 20 years, Paul.
It is, isn't it?
22 maybe?
Well, I joined in 99, so
Yeah.
99.
Yeah.
So 23 years ago, I joined, and then we did a tour of the States before, the original Twin Towers were still up, I remember getting a photo, and it's crazy to think how long ago that was, but Rory couldn't do a tour of the States, and I remember meeting you because you'd been asked to do it, and I think I met you. You turned up at my parents' house.
I did, yeah.
Like the day before we were supposed to leave, and I think you crashed at my folks' house.
That's right, I remember
And then
it.
we flew out to the States with the dogs.
So at that time, I'd just finished at the academy.
Oh, so you'd finished?
I'd just finished, and I'd just recorded my first album with Foot Stomping Records.
Right.
Simon Tumier and all the guys.
Oh, yeah.
I'd just done that, and I remember it well, and it was like, to me, that period was brilliant, because getting that gig, doing the tours with the dogs, there was a couple of other things that happened, the Unusual Suspects.
Oh, yeah, I remember
first
you were
version of
involved
that.
in that.
And various different things. It was a great period because it made me realise you can actually have a career in this. And I loved that time. It was a really interesting time, because in some ways it probably validated the course that I'd just done.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
that it needed validation, but it was it just seemed to kind of flow nicely that I'd just finished up, got some tours abroad, making a living playing music.
Yeah.
Not a very good living, I must add. But
Not back then. No. And also when we were on tour, I'm pretty sure we would end up owing the band money
I think we did.
at the end of a tour.
Yeah.
Like,
No,
where's the fee? Phoning the manager.
You've spent it.
Oh, well, actually, you owe the band. Like.
Yeah. Oh no, there was a bit of that going on, wasn't there? Yeah.
But so this went on for a while. What were there any? Well, of course there were. But what were some of the particular highlights of that time when you were performing professionally? Like what were some of those favourite gigs or times or tours for you?
I do remember the American tours fondly with you guys, with the dogs.
Yeah.
I think, again, it was that time, without sounding kind of old and nostalgic, it was like I had nothing else to worry about.
I know.
Other than, what time do I have to get up tomorrow to get the bus to go and do the next gig? And just that was so carefree, and
I know.
it was a brilliant
Cruising
time.
through.
I loved it.
Yeah.
It was great. And then, some great times. I kind of formed my own band just after that, I guess.
With Chris Stout and
Chris Stout, Kev McKenzie,
Fergus
McKenzie on drums, and originally it was Quee MacArthur on bass.
Right.
And then when he started doing more Sugar Nifty stuff, we got John Spears in.
Great bass
Again,
player.
we had great times. We did a couple of albums. We travelled a lot, Italy and the States and Spain, Galicia, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And again, it was it just felt great. Just out doing gigs, and when I think about it now, it was so easy.
Yeah.
In some ways, in other ways it was difficult because it's tiring and you're staying up late and you're getting up early sometimes and you're travelling a lot. But there were nice times having that focus of just doing the gig
Yeah.
That was your main focus of the day, was getting your sound check done and doing your gig. And it was a really cool thing, a cool time, you know.
Absolutely. So at what point did you, so now you are director of piping here, El Patron of piping.
Yeah.
I keep calling you that, just to wind you up. But where did your involvement with the National Piping Centre begin? And because it sort of feels like, you know, your journey with the pipes has been such a very cohesive one, and now you're here, and it's, how did that parlay for you?
Yep, so, I mean, I reckon I was probably the first person ever to get a lesson in here.
Really?
Yep, before it was even opened to the public.
Right.
Because at the time, I was getting lessons from Pipe Major Angus MacDonald over at the College of Piping. And he was planning to come here to start teaching here. And so there was literally still paint drying on the walls, and I had a gig coming up, and I had, you know, Angus always helped me get my pipes going and all that, and taught me how to kind of do that. And so I'd called him up and said, look, any chance I can get half an hour with you just to check my pipes and stuff? And he said, well, come up to the new building and we'll get you in. And I look around and got my pipes going and stuff. So that, I guess, was probably the first official lesson, probably.
Really?
Well, unofficial, really.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I was studying here. You know, I got all my piping lessons here as part of my degree.
Sorry, what year would this be? 90s?
So 96.
96, yeah.
So I was getting lessons from Alan MacDonald, from Dougie Pincock, and from Pipe Major Angus, mostly.
When the
paint
paint was not yet dry.
It was brand new, brand new place. And then, as a student, I used to teach the small pipe class here on I think it was a Wednesday night. So I've always kind of been involved, I guess, in different levels. And then, shortly after, those tours and stuff, kind of early 2000s, maybe 2003, 2004, I took on a bit more teaching here, and I was doing a couple of days. I was teaching out at Hutchie School on a Friday, and I think I did a Tuesday down at Lomond School in Helensburgh.
Right.
And I did an evening class, so I kind of started doing bits and bobs, and kind of got busier and got more involved, and ended up doing the head of piping studies job from about 2007, 2008.
And John Mulhern now
does that. Roddy left here 2020, early 2020.
Yeah.
And I just thought, I've probably got something to offer here, and put my name in the hat, and thankfully I got the job.
So what is your vision for the National Piping Centre now that you've been at the helm? You know, since the pandemic, this year's really you know, being at the helm and really giving it your go at it. Yeah. So what would you say your vision is for this place now?
Yeah, I think the vision, it would be crazy to just kind of try and change everything, because there's been 25 years of amazing work done here. So it's, for me, a balance of continuing that great work, but seeing how we can tweak things, just see how we might be moving forward with things like, you know, opening up, making piping more accessible, more inclusive, still pushing those standards at every level. So if it's you know, the top competition music or more experimental music, something in between, spreading the reach, making sure that people know that we are an institution for all. It's not a small club. We should be open to everyone that wants to learn pipes, or people that just enjoy pipes.
Absolutely.
And you know, there's some wider stuff that we're looking at in terms of accessibility, and you know, some new projects that I think will push that reach and push that accessibility. So I think it's making sure that we are still absolutely at the forefront of everything to do with piping, but we're also here to support other people, other organisations, and I think the people in anything are the most important thing. So we have to make sure we, one, have the best people here, but also we engage with all kinds of people. And I think that in itself just, it's a kind of self-perpetuating thing where the more people we engage with, you know, the bigger it's going to get and the better it's going to get.
Well, Finlay MacDonald, it's been a pleasure to talk to you, and I wish you all the best with your vision at the National Piping Centre.
Thank you, and good to have a chat.
Right, Finlay. To play us out today on the show, we're gonna watch a track by Tryst.
Yep.
What we're gonna see.
This is a track that was filmed in Reigate at the 2019 Piping Live. And Tryst, as you know, is a 10-piece band of friends, basically. And we all write for the band. We've kind of grown up together, I guess, playing music and trying different things. And I think this was a particularly cool gig that we did at Piping Live, where we took kind of our favourite composers and put a set together of their tunes. So there was Donna MacLeod, for example. There was Gordon Duncan, Alan MacDonald, different kind of composers. And this one, the Gordon Duncan set, as we call it, is a cracker. And there was an amazing atmosphere in the room. Quite a small room for 10 pipes, but I think that really added to the atmosphere. And it starts off with a great tune called Full Moon Down Under.
Right.
And then goes into a couple of Gordon's great reels, so.
Great.
Yeah, this is
Well, thank you very much for watching the Piping Show this week. I've been Paul Jennings. He's been Finlay MacDonald. And this is going to be the Gordon Duncan set by Tryst.